Hello and welcome. Multinational Joint Task Force hands over 160 repentant Boko Haram terrorists and rescued persons to Boko Haram government. Tiv ethnic group withdraws from Judicial Commission of Inquiry set up by the Taraba state government to end the age-long crisis with Jukun ethnic group. 9 persons, including 3 military personnel, die in attacks by gunmen on Tashankare and Yakila communities of Rafi local government area in Niger State. And mutinying soldiers in Mali arrest President Boubacar Keïta and Prime Minister Boubou Cissé in Bamako. ECOWAS and France condemn action. Plus, we'll have business, sports, and later on news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, Nigerian banks recover 50.32 million naira bad loan from debtors 9 days after central bank implemented the global standing instruction.
And on sports news tonight, Barcelona president Josep Pachamo says former Dutch international Ronald Koeman will be new coach of the Catalan club.
The multinational Joint Task Force is now in custody of 106 persons with affiliation to the Boko Haram insurgent group. Some of the persons of interest surrendered to the headquarters Section 1 of the MNJTF in far north Cameroon, while the women and children were rescued. The Borno state government has commenced profiling with a plan to return them to Nigeria for possible de-radicalization and reintegration. The MNJTF commander, Major General Ibrahim Yusuf, says sustained operations throwing the insurgents in disarray is responsible for the change of heart by the repentant fighters. The ex-fighters will be sent to the Operation Safe Corridor, while the women will undergo stages of counseling before they are debriefed. And staying with security matters, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, says Jigawa State, which now falls within the frontline states, is at the risk of incursion by insurgents. General Buratai was speaking at the State House in Dutse, the capital of Jigawa, after inspecting the ongoing construction of the Army barracks at Egaba town. According to him, there are reports of fleeing insurgents within the state, which is why a whole battalion will be relocated to Jigawa.
We know the strategic location of Jigawa State is in terms of the counter-insurgency operation in the northeast. Jigawa State is one of the frontline states, and it forms a buffer or a sort of blocking position which our troops have been operating here to prevent the insurgents from spreading to other parts of the country through Jigawa State. And a lot of operations have taken place in the past, both intelligence operations, kinetic operations have been taking place, and so many arrests have been made in some towns here in Jigawa State. But we are happy that the people have cooperated very well. The state government has also cooperated very well. That has made the security situation much stable. This we want to continue to appreciate you, and we will continue to do our best to ensure that the country is secured. Together we'll work closely to ensure our country is protected from external aggression, from internal insurrection, and the general insecurity that is happening in other parts of the country. We make sure that we contain them and prevent the occurrence in those areas that are relatively peaceful.
And to conflict elsewhere, the Tiv ethnic group has withdrawn its participation to tender memoranda to offer testimony before the Judicial Commission of Inquiry set up by the Taraba state government to end the age-long crisis between them and the Jukun ethnic group. This follows objections raised by the council representing the tribe, which was overruled by Justice Kumai Bayang. The commission was set up to look into the remote and immediate causes of crisis between the thieves and neighboring communities in Taraba.
Relics of conflicts of the past still fresh. Untold destruction of life and property has persisted between the thieves from Benue and its neighbors, 6 communities in all from Taraba State. Billowing smoke from the rubble, a stark reminder of how quickly peace could degenerate into chaos. A brisk walk by Governor Darius Ishaku into this hall 2 weeks ago sets the tone in what seems a final-ditch effort to stop the carnage.
At every given opportunity, I task the good people of the state to give me peace, and I will give them development.
But more was to come. At a resumed sitting in this court, counsel to the thief ethnic group argued that the commission should stay proceedings as a suit at the Federal High Court in Abuja seeking to restrain the Darius Ishaku Judicial Commission of Inquiry from sitting pending the determination of the suit subsists. Not having his way though, he and his team staged a walkout, stating bias.
The thief people have been profiled, isolated and accentuated for destruction. Because a commission of inquiry is supposed to name the parties, they only named thief people and their neighbors.
Justice Kumai Bayang had overruled the submission made by counsel to the 8 million thief population, insisting that it is clear ambush of the proceedings and that no order was issued from the Federal High Court in Abuja stopping them from sitting. Counsel to the Jukuns, one of the tribes involved in the feud, is however satisfied with the outcome.
My clients are peace-loving people, and we believe in the sanctity and constitution of this Commission of Inquiry.
A public hearing has been scheduled to hold on Wednesday, August the 19th, for taking of memos and cross-examination of testimonies. This may seem difficult to achieve unless representatives of the major feuding parties are encouraged to return to the dialogue table.
To security matters, at least 9 persons, including 3 military personnel, have reportedly been killed following an attack by gunmen on Tashankare and Yakila communities in Rafai local government area of Niger State. Eyewitnesses say the attackers first stormed Yakila community around 12 noon on Monday and opened fire on a team of expatriates and some Nigerians working on the rehabilitation of Minna Zungeru Road. A team of security operatives, mainly mobile policemen, engaged the bandits in a gun battle that lasted more than 3 hours. The security personnel reportedly pursued the bandits up to a river around Padongari, killing 5 of them. Efforts to speak with the police public relations officer in the state, Wasiu Abiodun, were unsuccessful as he did not respond to his calls and text messages. But a statement from the defense spokesman, Major General John Eneche, says troops of Operation World Punch engaged the bandits in a gun duel at Tashankare, in which an unspecified number of gunmen and 3 soldiers were killed. Meanwhile, the Niger State Governor, Abubakar Sani Bello, has commiserated with the Lebanese government over the loss of their national in the bandit attack on Monday. The governor also consoles with the Nigerian army and FERMA over the loss of their personnel and staff. In a message, the governor expressed his deepest condolences and pain over the abducted, injured, and killed workers, including the foreigner. The governor says he's saddened by the continued loss of lives to society's undesirable elements at a time the government is doing everything to address the problem of infrastructure decay in most parts of the state. The governor revealed that his government will intensify its collaboration with the relevant security agencies to ensure the issue of insecurity is resolved. And the 2 wives and child of the slain member of the Bauchi State House of Assembly representing Das constituency, Musa Baraza, have regained their freedom after 5 days of being in captivity. Gunmen had attacked and killed Mr. Baraza at his house in Das and abducted his wives and child last Thursday. The police say 4 empty shells of live ammunition were recovered at the scene of the murder and that the incident is still being investigated. We'll have to continue with security issues. And the governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Sule, is grateful to President Muhammadu Buhari for his interventions in the security apparatus of the state. Governor Sule, who briefed correspondents after the closed-door meeting held at the State House in Abuja, is also thanking the president for the establishment of the country's third mobile police training college in Nasarawa State. He says the election that held in Nasarawa Central Senatorial District will serve as a template for how elections will be run in the country henceforth.
Post-COVID-19 election that was held by INEC was actually held in Nasarawa, so Nasarawa was used as the template, to see where do we go from here. So I'm happy to inform you that we had a very, very peaceful by-election in Nasarawa Central, and I'm also happier to tell you that apart from being very peaceful, APC won the election. So I needed to brief Mr. President about the election, how it went. That's part of the invitation. Part of the security we've been able to, I had to express great appreciation to Mr. President. One, for accepting to set up the third military mobile police training college in Nasarawa State. We only have two of them, one in Goza, one in Osun State, and now we have the third one in Nasarawa State. And it is set up at a place where it's very hilly, so at Goza they call it the desert training, in Elo they call it forest training, and the one in Nasarawa they call it jungle hill training. So, and it is set up actually at a place that has a lot of jungles and also was used by kidnappers and armed robbers in the past. So it was very successful. The project has been completed. We commissioned it last week, and everything went very well. Also to
In the meantime, the federal government is working on a policy for the protection of aid workers in the country. It's an assurance coming from the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Sadia Umar Farouk, while addressing a news conference in Abuja to mark the 2020 World Humanitarian Day. She says the safety of aid workers is a priority for the federal government, and the policy is being put together by the National Humanitarian Coordination Committee.
The latest killing of aid workers by Boko Haram insurgents is a reminder of the dangers faced by those helping people affected by the crisis. According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, at least 40 aid workers have died in the line of duty since the beginning of Boko Haram insurgency. 15 of them were killed in the last 12 months. This event marks the beginning of a 2020 World Humanitarian Day celebration. It provides an opportunity to highlight the plight of aid workers in the country.
The flagrant disregard of international humanitarian law has become such that humanitarians are removing the Red Crescent or the Red Crosses that mark health facilities, because these identifiers, they believe, makes them targets. Doctors, nurses, health facilities, ambulances and aid workers are increasingly at risk.
Given the security incidences and the threats that have occurred in the last few months, I call on the government to continue their commitment and support for humanitarian actions and efforts by ensuring the safety and security of all humanitarian workers in Nigeria.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs is co-chairing the National Humanitarian Coordination Committee, charged with the responsibility of addressing humanitarian issues in the country.
This committee is going to deliberate on all these issues of the humanitarian workers. Their protection, as I mentioned earlier, is of paramount priority and importance to us as a ministry and as a country generally. And we are also working on a policy framework that will outline or address all these issues of humanitarian workers, their safety and their protection.
Besides paying respect to the aid workers who lost their lives in the line of duty, The United Nations hopes that Nigeria can commit more resources to the protection of aid workers in the country.
In part 2, after the break, Lagos State government arraigned 2 persons for the killing of 26-year-old Chidinma Ajoku and 2 others in a container truck crash. That's in a moment. Please join us again. Back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Multinational Joint Task Force hands over 106 repentant Boko Haram terrorists and rescued persons to Borno State government. Tiv ethnic group withdraws from Judicial Commission of Inquiry set up by the Taraba state government to end the age-long crisis with Jukun ethnic group. 9 persons, including 3 military personnel, die in attacks by gunmen on Tashankare and Yakila communities of Rafi local government area in Niger State. And mutinying soldiers in Mali arrest President Boubacar Keïta and Prime Minister Boubou Cissé in Bamako. ECOWAS and France condemn action. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Do subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or you can download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android, Fire TV, and Roku as well. The Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room is concerned about what it describes as a deteriorating security situation in the country. At a news conference in Abuja, the convener of the Situation Room, Mr. Clement Wankwo, also notes that human rights and free speech are constantly being threatened. Mr. Wankwo also frowned on the violence that trailed the recent political rallies in Edo State.
In addition to government failures in the economic sphere, is a heightened insecurity in the country. On a daily basis, communities, villages and towns are attacked by bandits and insurgents and terrorists, with the security services unable to respond in any responsible manner. Multiple calls by state governors, the national legislature, civil society, and citizens for the sack of the ineffective leadership of security agencies have been ignored by the President Buhari. Yes. This response is made more saddening by the fact that the leadership of almost all the security agencies in the country remain in office well beyond their term limits. Human rights in the country remain under serious threat, with free speech and free expression constantly threatened. Situation Room calls for the following. The Nigerian government should genuinely seek to implement measures that restores citizens' confidence in its ability to govern. Repeatedly, citizens groups, the National Assembly, state governors have called for attention to be paid to the nature and leadership of our security services, and the President has not done so. We call on the President to respect the Constitution, to ensure that security chiefs who have exceeded their terms of office are allowed to go in order that the security services can be made much more effective and efficient.
A day after the Election Petitions Tribunal nullified his election, Governor Doye Diri of Bayelsa State has filed 12 grounds of appeal before the Court of Appeal in Abuja to challenge the tribunal judgment. In the notice of appeal he filed through his team of lawyers led by Chris Uche, Governor Diri is urging the appellate court to set aside the majority judgment of the Bayelsa State Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal, which nullified his election, and uphold the minority verdict. The tribunal had in a majority judgment by 2 of the 3-member panel of justices voided the outcome of the gubernatorial election that held in the state on November the 16th, 2019, over the exclusion of one of the registered political parties, Advanced Nigeria Democratic Party, in the contest. 2 members of the panel, Justices Sikiru Owoduni and Yunusa Musa, said they found merit in ANDP's contention that it was unlawfully excluded from participating in the governorship election by INEC, despite the fact that it fulfilled all statutory requirements. Justice Musa, who read the lead judgment in the matter, upheld the petition, saying the tribunal was satisfied that INEC illegally excluded the ANDP and its governorship candidate, King George, from the election. Staying with legal matters now, the president-elect of the Nigeria Bar Association is seeking the support of the Nigeria Governors Forum for enforcement of the rule of law and improved enhancement of human rights. Mr. Olumide Apata, who led members of his team on a courtesy visit to the chairman of the forum, Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State, is also calling for strengthening of institutions in Nigeria. Governor Fayemi, on his part, emphasized the commitment of the NGF to promoting judicial autonomy and fighting gender-based violence in the country.
Ensuring that the rule of law is respected, that the rights of our individuals, of our citizens, are not trampled upon. Your Excellency, you get 2 hats, Governor of Ekiti, and you're also Chairman of the Governors Forum. So at that level, Your Excellency, I'm hoping that the MDA will also be able to partner with the NGF to ensure that we build capacity, we strengthen institutions. We strengthen institutions across the board. And you can be sure that you will find a willing partner, and not just a willing partner, an effective partner in the MDA under my watch.
The Nigerian Governors Forum declared a state of emergency on gender-based violence. And we've been working with lawyers, with the police on what does this really mean. One, for us, it means all states must enact or domesticate the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. It means enforcement at an effective level of the provisions of the VAPP Act. One of the issues we've been grappling with, which would be of interest to you, is Executive Order 10, which relates to judicial autonomy, as you know. And let me state for the record that governors all over Nigeria are for judicial autonomy.
Meanwhile, the Lagos state government has arraigned 2 persons, Sadiq Okonlawon and Wasiu Lekon, for the unlawful killing of a 26-year-old Chidima Ajoku, her colleague Nekwe Chima, and one Daniel Ukwoge. The Attorney General of Lagos, Moyoshori Onibanjo, who led the prosecution, told Justice Mobolanle Okikiolu-Iyile that the 3-count charge of involuntary manslaughter had been filed against the truck driver and the owner. He also mentioned that the state had lined up 13 witnesses to testify against the 2 defendants. The incident occurred on July the 26th when they rammed into the victims with their truck at the Ilasamaja area of Oshodi Expressway. After the counts were read to them, the 2 defendants pleaded not guilty. Justice Okikiolu-Iyile had ordered the remand of the defendants in police custody. She adjourned the case to August the 20th and the 26th for trial. The Minister of State for Health, Olorunimbe Mamora, is asking the chief medical directors of the federal medical centers across the country to prioritize isolation and testing for COVID-19 in their various facilities. Dr. Mamora, who made the call on the sidelines of a meeting with some newly appointed CMDs in Abuja, says isolation, testing and treatment remain critical in the management and structure of COVID-19.
In COVID-19, one of the main things you need to do, if not the most important thing, is to test. Because the majority, over 80% of cases they are asymptomatic. That is, what you can call healthy carriers. They have it, you don't know until you test. So that's why testing is critical in the management pillar of COVID-19. You must test. So it's in that regard that our federal medical centers, they are doing their best. A good number of them, they have isolation centers. A good number of them, they even have treatment centers as well. A number of these FMCs, they do. So that's what you expect of them. And once you test, you isolate, and if you need to also, treat, you go ahead and treat when symptoms are there.
The House of Representatives Committee on Implementation of Pay-As-You-Go for cable TV service providers has issued a 2-week ultimatum to StarTimes to review tariffs downward. StarTimes had on August the 1st announced an increase in tariff, which it attributes to the foreign exchange rate and the increase in value-added tax. The lawmakers are, however, of the opinion that increasing tariffs during the COVID-19 pandemic is unfair to Nigerians.
Whether you did selective increments or you decided to increase on all of them, is not the right time. That's the position of Nigerians. It is not the time of COVID-19 that Nigerians should be treated, this way. This is the time that you are supposed to provide succor, palliative, to Nigerians based on the current situation that we are facing. So I would like to ask the management of StarTime, led by the CEO here, to have a rethink. So we'll give you, a time to go back to the board and then look at the increments as it relates to the 2.5% recent VAT increments.
To education now, and the leadership of the Academic Staff Union of Universities has unveiled a payroll software called the University Transparency and Accountability Solution. They say it should replace the federal government's integrated payroll and personnel information system. Addressing journalists at the ASUU office in Abuja, the university lecturers say the new software is now ready for integrity tests as requested by the federal government. According to the ASUU president, Professor Biodun Ogunyemi, the new software recognizes the nature and structure of Nigerian universities, which, according to him, is absent in the IPPIS. ASUU has been on strike since the month of March, demanding, among other issues, that the university community be excluded from the IPPIS. When the news at 10 returns, Nigerian banks recover 50.2 million naira bad loans from debtors 9 days after central bank implemented the global standing instruction. Do join us again. On to politics now. The All Progressives Congress in Edo State says it's uncovered a plot by the state government to stage an attack on its convoy with the aim of gaining public sympathy ahead of the September the 19th governorship election. This planned action, according to the Edo State APC chairman, is also aimed at disrupting the peaceful conduct of the election.
In a shocking revelation, it has been shown that the Edo State government, in connivance with a retired police officer from Kogi State, who have been identified in a series of violence plots in Edo State and beyond, is plotting to stage an attack on their own convoy, specifically that of the Deputy Governor, Mr. Philip Shaibu, in a bid to draw sympathy, pose as victims, and set the stage for a new wave of violent onslaught on the people of Edo State, some of whom have fallen victims to the reckless shootings of the governor's army of thugs and criminals. We are alerting the whole world to this evil and mischievous plan of the PDP, while also repeating our appeal to the Inspector General of Police to immediately commence the promised clampdown on arms proliferation in the state and the prosecution of all previously arrested persons, particularly the 7 who were caught with guns within the premises of Edo State House of Assembly complex.
But the Edo State government has described as unfounded the APC's allegation that it plans to attack its own convoy while on the campaign trail. The government describes the allegation as part of the APC's antics to distract members of the public from focusing on preparations for the elections.
Yeah, let me just say categorically that that is false, absolutely untrue. And let me also add that, this is the new tactic that is being deployed by APC, because these guys know that they're failed. They had to rush over their campaigns because they were rejected everywhere they went. They actually spent a lot of money calling voters across the state. They did a very massive, phone call exercise, and they've called virtually all the voters in Edo State, and they found that only about 20% or less of the population want to vote for them. Over 80% want to vote for the governor. So they're now using diversionary, underhand tactic, violence, threat of violence, actual violence, orchestrated chaos, and several, and then also running to Aso Rock to go and beg the president to give them the soldiers and police to come and disrupt the polls. Those are the last options left for the APC. But we can assure you that none of it will work. We're waiting for September 19 to come. The people will troop out en masse, vote for Governor Obaseki, and put all this nonsense, to rest.
Meanwhile, the PDP says it will continue to tread the path of peace in the September the 19th governorship election in the state, even in the face of provocation. The party's candidate, Governor Godwin Obaseki, restated this commitment in a rally in Esan, southeast local government area of the state.
It's the second day of campaign for the PDP in Edo Central. The campaign trail remains in Esan Southeast local government area. The palace of the Onoje of Ewemi plays host to the PDP entourage.
The fantasy will be our heavily final.
The discussions here border on an appeal for a peaceful governorship election. Mr. Obaseki says his administration has always been promoting peace, noting that this will continue even in the face of provocation.
Peace is in our DNA. And we assure you this morning that we will continue to insist that we have peace in Edo. Even at this time, despite the provocations, we, as much as possible, try to avert any situations that will lead to confrontation, and we will continue to.
With the pleasantries over, an eager crowd leads the PDP campaign team to the ward rallies. The PDP Campaign Council believes that the September 19 polls will put democracy in Nigeria to a serious test.
I want to appeal to the presidency. The Edo election is very important. Whether democracy can be sustained in this nation will be decided in that election. The people, the Edo people are watching. Nigerians are watching. Even members of the international community, they are watching. This is one election that will determine whether we are prepared for democracy in this country.
The day's itinerary includes projects inspection and commissioning. First, the Usugbenu maize farm in Irua, Esan Central, which is ready for harvesting.
I commissioned this road before the very eyes
of our great government.
And the 5.3-kilometer Iselu-Okagben Road in Ewoimi.
The Nigeria incentive-based risk-sharing system for agricultural lending is supporting farmers in the northeast with input and soft loans to encourage more people to return to their farms during this cropping season. Speaking to Maize Farmers Association in Borno State, the managing director of NERSAL encourages farmers in relatively peaceful communities to take advantage of the federal government's agriculture incentives.
Officials of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Nigeria incentive-based risk-sharing system for agricultural lending, and that of the Borno State government, arriving at the palace of the Emir of Biu in Borno State, where they meet farmers' associations in the local government area. The meeting is about the provision of incentives to farmers in the northeast region in order to encourage them to go back to their farms this farming season. Apart from providing the farmers with soft loans, inputs such as tractors and fertilizers are distributed, which will be repaid after harvesting.
Why are we all here and in front of the Emir of Biu? It's for the farmers to understand that this is serious business, that the federal government and central bank are ready to support them provided they take up the habit of taking a loan as a debt. And we know traditionally by religion, Christianity and Islam, when you take a debt, you must pay back. The wisdom behind this support by the central bank is if you pay back, you are eligible to get the same debt again. But if they don't pay back this loan and they think it's government free, okay, you can eat it now and we will pursue you and make sure you pay and you will not enter the books of central bank for loan again.
Any business that you start, you always think that you have to get a profit after the business. So our expectation that we get a profit after the rainy season.
Providing these inputs is one thing. Security of farmers as they go back to their farms is quite another.
The team of civil defense officers, police, army, and our civilian JTF were given new brand vehicles, and they have been going about every road, providing security to our farmer. If I've been to Maiduguri, you will see them. There are vehicles written RRS, and these vehicles are over hundreds. He distributed to all the security agencies, and they are currently providing security to all our farmers.
People have come back to work in the northeast, as symbolized by the farmers in Biu. They have gone back to their farms, they have gone back to work. The federal government through central bank is supporting them. We NASAL are facilitators, we are owned by the central bank, and what we see is wealth being created.
For most farmers in this local government area who are just recovering from the effects of insurgency, this gesture is surely a blessing at this time.
Let's take a look at some business news now, and here's Anne Waudu.
Thank you, Joma. Hello and welcome to Business News. 9 days after implementing the global standard instruction, Nigerian banks have now recovered 50.32 million naira bad loan from individual borrowers. The Central Bank's Director of Financial Policy and Regulation, Mr. Kevin Amugo, who made this known today at a webinar organized by the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, says the GSI policy became operational from August the 1st. However, he explains that the amount recovered was insignificant compared with a total of 1.66 billion naira bad debts by 26,057 bank customers, while data from the CBN shows that non-performing loans and banks were higher during the economic downturn. The CBN had introduced the GSI protocol to support the banking sector in reducing the rate of unserviced loans and its impact on the sector, and also improve loan recovery efforts by banks. Meanwhile, the Managing Director of the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, Mr. Omar Ibrahim, is reassuring depositors of their safety of their funds as the nation grapples with the effect of COVID-19 on the economy. At a meeting with members of the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions, the NDIC boss explains that while Nigerian depositors are currently faced with the challenge of how to meet up with their needs with meager resources at their disposal, their deposits must be protected at all times.
Our concern here
is how the pandemic has impacted the Nigerian banking system and what threats and opportunities it presents to both the banking system and our deposit insurance system. Given the tremendous emotional stress accompanied by fear of potential loss of savings and dwindling returns on deposits, high cost of borrowing, job losses, inflation, etc., it is very necessary for all of us, that is the banking system, so by the regulatory authorities and the National Assembly, to do everything possible to provide second and protection to our millions of depositors, especially the small depositors, so that they don't slip into more poverty and despondency.
In the meantime, the $1.5 billion loan request by the federal government from the World Bank is suffering a delay from over reforms on exchange rate unification. According to reports by Reuters, the World Bank plans to bring the loan request to its board for approval this month, but it has been delayed further due to the certain conditions yet to be met by the federal government. That report adds that currency is the major issue, but the multilateral lender is yet to outline additional demands ahead of the proposed presentation in October. The federal government has adjusted the value of the naira twice this year already, but the report states that the World Bank sees the move as inadequate. Away from money now, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has become a member of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative supporting company, joining a group of over 65 entities who are committed to promoting transparency through the extraction industries. According to the EITI, who made this announcement today on its website, the NNPC's recent move to publish the audited accounts of its 20 subsidiaries shows its commitment towards becoming a transparent national oil company. It also adds that further adherence to the EITI supporting company expectations will give a drive to NNPC's corporate vision of accountability and transparency. Meanwhile, the NNPC Group Managing Director, Mr. Melekiari, says the corporation has been working closely with the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative by providing data yearly for reports. Let's head to the local market now, where the bourse made a marginal 0.02%, and that's about 2 billion naira rebound from yesterday's losses, largely driven by slight interest of investors in Dangote Sugar and 15 other equities. Temple Ashaju has the details.
Thank you for joining us again on the Stock Market Report. The equities market continues to trade mixed as investors cherry-pick across high and mid-sized stocks with low valuations, as reflected in the market breadth, an indicator that measures investors' appetite in the market. Now, today, the overall market performance improved slightly by 0.02%, just as the volume of traded shares ticked higher than yesterday's record. Now, in anticipation of some interim dividends from top-tier banks, investors boosted their interest in the banking stocks today. Banking stocks like Zenith Bank and GT Bank, they contributed more to the entire market turnover, as we have right here. Now, these led to a positive performance in the banking sector, which comes, of course, behind the insurance segment, while 16 companies recorded gains and 13 others ended in declines. To explain the market breadth that we have for today's trading session. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Temple Ashaju.
That's business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Joma.
Thanks a lot, Anne. President Muhammadu Buhari today received former President Goodluck Jonathan at the State House in Abuja. Dr. Jonathan, who is ECOWAS Special Envoy to the Republic of Mali, briefed him on the political situation in the West African country and efforts by West African leaders to restore stability to the country. A statement indicated that Dr. Jonathan relayed to the president that the main opposition group, M5, insists on the resignation of President Boubacar Keïta a position not acceptable to ECOWAS, which insisted on a democratic process for change of power within its jurisdiction. President Buhari and 4 other ECOWAS leaders had visited Bamako, Mali last month, after which there was a virtual extraordinary summit of the sub-regional body. But it appears the efforts of the West African leaders did not stop the Malian military from going ahead with its plan, as the country's president Ibrahim Boubacar Keita has been arrested by the country's mutinying soldiers in an apparent coup attempt that began with gunfire at a key military camp near the capital Bamako. It came hours after disgruntled junior officers detained commanders and took control of the Kati camp about 15 kilometers from the capital. It's not yet clear how many soldiers have taken part in the mutiny, and some reports say it was fueled by a pay dispute. Earlier, we spoke to a journalist in Bamako, Mohammed Salaha, about the situation in the country.
Today in the morning, some soldiers ransacked a military camp in the soldier ransacked a military camp in Kati, which is located around 15 kilometers of the capital city, Bamako, which is one of the greatest military camps. So they took out weapons and they started shooting in the air. The soldiers have erected first barricades at the entrance and exit of Kati, and they were really controlling everything, access, out and inside. They closed the market. So after that, the situation moved from Kati to Bamako with the arrestation of the president and his prime minister at his private residence in Sebenikoro, and also the justice minister's private house has been ransacked and set on fire. And also, during the day, the ECOWAS has called the military to return to their barracks and call on parties in Malian case to engage in dialogue. The situation is very, very confusing. We can see the streets of Bamako are empty. There is no traffic. And we can see military and civilians on the streets celebrating a kind of happiness. And also at the Independence Place that I was, people are celebrating some happiness there. So the situation is confusing because there is no official statement, there is no official declaration from the government nor from the military.
A UN-backed tribunal has convicted Hezbollah member Salim Ayash of conspiracy to kill Lebanon's former Prime Minister Rafik al-Hariri in a 2005 bombing that set the stage for years of confrontation between Lebanon's rival political forces. Salim and the others, all from Hezbollah, had been on trial since 2014, and Hezbollah denied any involvement. However, the tribunal found that there was insufficient evidence against the 3 other men charged as accomplices in the bombing, and they were acquitted. Here's Salman Pusey with more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The US Democratic National Convention, held online due to coronavirus restrictions, has officially crowned Joe Biden as the Democratic candidate for the White House.
In person if we can.
However, it was Michelle Obama and her powerful speech that caught everyone's attention with a searing indictment of Donald Trump's presidency.
So let me be as honest and clear as I possibly can. Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is.
Mrs. Obama accused the president of completely mishandling the coronavirus pandemic and of failing to respond to the nationwide cries for racial justice.
We're facing the worst public health crisis in 100 years.
Her denunciations of the president were echoed from other prominent Democratic figures and also by some Republicans. Joe Biden currently leads President Donald Trump in national opinion polls. The poll is supposed to take place on November the 3rd. One of 4 men accused of killing Rafik Hariri, the former Lebanese prime minister in Beirut in 2005, has been convicted by a special UN-backed court.
Finds Salim Jamil Ayash guilty as a co-perpetrator of...
Salim Ayash and the others, all from the Shia militant group Hezbollah, had been on trial in absentia since 2014 for the killing of the prime minister and 21 other people in a massive bomb attack in the Lebanese capital. The Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko has said he would be ready to hold new elections and hand over power after a constitutional referendum, an attempt to pacify mass protests and strikes that pose the biggest challenge yet to his rule. This comes after he told off jeering workers on a visit to a factory who booed and chanted "leave" as he threatened there would be no new elections while he was alive. This comes as the opposition candidate Svetlana Tikhanovska, now exiled in Lithuania, suggested she could act as an interim leader. Hundreds of protesters have been wounded and 2 have died in clashes with police over the past week. Some 6,700 people have been arrested, and many have spoken of torture at the hands of security forces. The captain of the ship that spilled hundreds of tons of oil off the coast of Mauritius has been arrested. Police said Sunil Kumar Nandeshwar, a 58-year-old Indian man, was charged with endangering safe navigation. The MV Wakashio ran aground on a coral reef while carrying 4,000 tons of fuel oil in July. The World Health Organization has said they are concerned by the number of young people recently infected by coronavirus. The WHO said the proportion of younger people among those infected had risen globally, putting at risk vulnerable sectors of the population worldwide, including the elderly and sick people in densely populated areas with weak health services. A surge in new cases has prompted some countries to reimpose curbs as the number of infections nears 22 million. More than a dozen rockets have struck the Afghan capital Kabul, wounding at least 10 people, prompting some foreign embassies to order a lockdown. The security threat came as Afghanistan celebrated its National Independence Day, marking the end of British sovereignty over the country in 1919. The identity of the attackers was unknown, though an Interior Ministry spokesman said 2 suspects had been arrested. A new report shows overfishing from industrial trawlers in the waters of the Republic of Congo is forcing fishermen to catch more sharks already at risk of extinction. The Wildlife Trade Monitoring Network called for stronger measures to cut down on shark fishing in West Africa, which would endanger rare species such as rays and hammerheads. The Republic of Congo, which has one of the highest per capita fish consumption rates amongst sub-Saharan African countries. The country's artisanal fishermen rely on them for local trade and consumption, but demand in Asia is also fueling the drive to catch more. And finally, footage of a pod of dolphins who have been seen playing with jet skis and their riders on the Dorset coast in the UK. 2 lifeboats were dispatched to the area after receiving a call reporting a jet ski on fire in Ringstead Bay. But after arriving on the scene and putting out the fire, both the lifeboat crews and the jet ski riders were greeted with the sight of a pod of playing dolphins jumping in the water. No one was injured in the fire, including the dolphins, and both jet ski riders and the lifeboat crews got an incredible story to tell. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Barcelona have agreed terms with former Dutch international Ronald Koeman to become their new coach. Koeman arrived in Barcelona this evening and held talks with the club's president, Josep Bartomeu, who confirmed that the former Ajax Amsterdam and Everton boss will sign a 2-year contract with the Catalan club. PSG have reached their first ever Champions League final after defeating RB Leipzig 3-0 in the last 4 as they seek to change their profile as underachievers in the tournament. Brazil star Marquinhos scored the first goal for the French moneybags with a header in the 13th minute. And French League have postponed, to Barcelona again, who've terminated the contract of sporting director Eric Abidal the day after sacking the head coach Quique Setien. The move is one of many changes set to take place at the Catalan club following their 8-2 defeat to Bayern Munich in the Champions League quarter-final on Friday. And that's it on Sports News. Ijoma, back to you.
Thank you, Olumide. And the main news again. The multinational joint task force today handed over 106 repentant Boko Haram terrorists and rescued persons to the Borno State government. And mutinying soldiers in Mali today arrested President Boubacar Keïta and Prime Minister Boubou Cissé in Bamako, an action condemned by ECOWAS and France. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks a lot for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Unyato. Good night and stay safe.